I'm looking forward to talking to you this morning about you as teachers. Let's not talk about students, let's talk about teachers. Let's talk about you. You're the most important people in the classroom. So we're going to talk today about a recipe for teacher learning, not student learning, but teacher learning. So my name is Peter Lucantoni. As Mohammed said, I work for Cambridge University Press and Assessment. I'm the Professional Learning and Development Manager for the Middle East, Turkey, Africa, and Central and Eastern Europe. I've worked in English language teaching for many, many years, but I'm also an author. I'm now in the 6th edition of my IGCSE book, and last year I published with my friend and colleague Matt Ellman a new handbook for teachers, From Teacher to Trainer, which is a support book for teachers who want to move into the role of teacher trainer and teacher supporter. I know we don't have an enormous amount of time today, but I'm going to try and cover these things which are appearing on the screen now. We're going to have a little think about what we're aiming for in teacher learning, and we're going to look at what impact actually means. We'll have a look at the process of developing teacher learning and how we can actually implement teacher learning in any particular context. And hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for a summary as well. But just before we do that, I'd like you to just stop and think and respond to the question on the next screen. Please don't panic. There's no right or wrong answer, and I'm not going to give any prizes. But just have a think. If you want, you can type in the chat box the answer to the question. It's not a difficult question, but here it is. I want you to think about yourselves. Who are you? Are you a teacher and you manage your own development? Or are you B, a trainer, or maybe a mentor, or maybe a manager, and you manage other people's development? Or are you C, which is not A, or B, somebody different? If you want to quickly type in the chat box, it would be great to see who we've got here today. Oh, a couple of people are saying both. A's, B's, A's, B's, A's, B's, A's, A's, lots of A's, lots of A's, lots of boths. Yeah, okay, great. So I think mostly people would put themselves into the A category, but we've got some B's and some boths as well. As I said, there's no right or wrong answer, but I think it's good to understand where we're coming from with this whole question of teacher learning. So I have a question for you, and this time it would be really good to get some comments from you. What do you think we're aiming for in teacher learning? What's the whole point of teacher learning? Why do we need to focus on teacher learning? Somebody quickly in the chat box. Yeah, that's a nice comment from Donna, isn't it? Being more compassionate as educators. Yeah, great. Doa is talking about the language. Yeah, good. Any other ideas? What are we aiming for in teacher learning? What's the point of teacher learning? Why are you here today and probably tomorrow as well? Improvement, self-development, giving others what they need to learn. Yeah, lovely ideas. Great. Support, being more confident. Okay, lovely. Okay, all the right ideas coming in. Let's start with a quote. I want you to have a look at this quote from Professor Dylan Williams, which I think is a nice way to start what we're going to be talking about today. Have a look at this. And I think when we look at the word improve, we often think about we need to improve because we're not doing a good job. I'm sure sometimes you've written on a student's piece of writing, you need to improve. You need to get better. But Dylan Williams is saying everybody needs to improve, not because we're not doing a good job, not because we're no good, not because we've got something wrong, but because everybody can be even better. No matter where you are in your career, as a teacher or as a trainer, we can always do better than we're currently doing. And I take that on board myself as well. I always think I can do a better job than I'm doing at the moment. Some nice things. If you've got time to look at the chat box as well as listen to me, I think there's some lovely stuff coming in. A nice few words from Donna saying, experts say that There's so much to learn in teaching that we need 15 lifetimes to do a good job. I agree with you. So I think what we're aiming for in teacher learning is several key things. The first one, I think we need sustained something in teaching knowledge and practice. The word begins with an I. Any ideas? Sustained what? What do you think we need? Sustained I in teaching knowledge. Insight, good, Marwa. Improvement, Donna says with a question mark. It is actually improvements. So we need sustained improvements in teaching knowledge and practice. And I think the key word there is sustained. It indicates that something, teacher learning, needs to be going on over a period of time. Number two, a word beginning with C, that are context sensitive. Any ideas for number two? Paulina says competence. Yeah, doesn't quite fit, does it? Nice word, though. I think we do need to be competent. Yeah. It's sort of another word for improvements. If you think of a sort of a synonym for improvements beginning with C. Any ideas? Okay, I'll just tell you this one. It's a bit more complicated. Changes. We need to make changes in the classroom that are context sensitive. And this is important to remember because, of course, when we're involved in teacher learning, the things that we're learning may not always be relevant to us in our particular context. And we'll come back to that in a little while. What about 3 and 4? Positive what on student what? Salama has jumped to number 4, learning. Yeah. Maria says impact on learning. Let's have a look. Yeah. Positive impact on student learning. Exactly. Yeah. So what do we mean by impact? What is impact? I wish I was in a room with you so I could talk to you and ask you to tell me. It's so slow online, isn't it? But what do we mean by impact? Is impact something that you consider as a teacher? Yeah, Marwa says it's to do with effect and influence. And sorry, that was a nice one. I'm just running away. El Sayed says it's better learning results. Rodrigo Fiona talks about the understood acquisition. Yeah, okay. So nice comments coming in. I think what we mean by impact is the result of 2 other things. I think impact is the result, first of all, of input, and then implementation, and then hopefully we get the impact afterwards. So what do we mean by input? Input, well, of course, input is what you're doing now. Input is what you're doing by attending this amazing online conference over the next couple of days. So input is what you're getting now. Input is when you attend a workshop. Input is when you pick up a book and you read. Input is when you watch a video and you get knowledge and you get information. Of course, we get so much information that we can't ever use all of it. And we have to select and we have to think, as I mentioned previously, about our context. Can I use this input? Can I use this new idea? Can I use this activity in my classroom? If the answer is yes, then we move along to the implementation. And when we implement things in the classroom, hopefully we're going to have an impact in our classroom. So just sticking with that word impact, let's have a little bit of couple of quotes which I think reinforce this whole idea of teacher learning and input. The first one is from Silvana Richardson and Diaz Majoli. The main goal of CPD, continual professional development, teacher learning, teacher training, whatever you want to call it, is to effect changes in teaching so that it results in enhanced student learning. So the whole goal of your being here today, of your being here this weekend, is so that changes will happen in your teaching so that the result is enhanced student learning. In other words, impact. Second quote I want to show you from Martin Parrott, who you may be familiar with. He says the goal of teacher education should be more effective learning of English by pupils and students. And of course, you're maybe not an English teacher. If you're not an English teacher and you're a maths teacher or a geography teacher or a teacher of French, then the goal of teacher education is exactly the same. It's still to be more effective learning and to have more impact in our classrooms. So how does it work? What's the process then of developing teacher learning? What actually needs to go on? I think there are various steps that we need to go through if we want teacher learning to actually happen. I think the first thing is in the planning stage, and it's about making joint decisions on aims. And when I talk about aims here, I mean the aims of the teacher learning. When I talk about decisions, I mean considering things like the what and the why and the who, the people who are involved in making decisions about teacher learning. So I think we need to consider what is it that needs to be developed. And of course, not all teachers need the same things. I'm sure you've looked at the conference program for this weekend and you've selected things that you're going to attend and you're going to participate in, and you've also thought, I'm probably not going to attend that. It's not really of any interest to me. So we need to make decisions about what needs to be developed. And of course, if you're working in a school or in a university or a college, it may be that the teachers, all of the people who said A, in my little poll earlier on, it may be the people who said A have no input on the type of learning, teacher learning, that's actually provided. The second thing that needs to be considered and discussed and agreed on is why. Why are we doing it? Why are we doing this particular piece of teacher learning? Why are we attending this conference? Why are we attending this workshop? And as I've said already, we need to consider very carefully the who decides. Please don't answer this, but just think, during your careers as teachers, how many decisions have you made about the teacher learning that you've done, particularly if you're working in an institution? I suspect that a lot of the time you had no input on that decision. You were told 3 o'clock tomorrow, there's going to be a workshop on this, you need to attend. I think the thing to remember with all of this is that if teachers are not involved in making decisions about their teacher learning, then it's highly likely that learning is not going to be happening. Many's a time I've been in a training situation with teachers sitting there like this, looking at me, and I know it's not me, it's not about Peter, but it's about the fact that they've been forced to attend for whatever reason, and they've taken umbrance at having to do that. So the first thing we need in this process of developing teacher learning is that we need everybody to be involved, all the stakeholders. We need the teachers definitely to be involved, as well as their managers, and of course the trainer should also be involved to get a better understanding of what's actually required. The second thing, and this links back to the quotes that we saw earlier, is this idea of sustained development. We need to plan to work over an extended period of time, if at all possible. It's not always possible. And I admit that a lot of the training work that I do, it's not extended. It's just a one-off. I go and I do it, and I may never see those teachers ever again. Luckily, more and more so nowadays, more work that I do is actually over an extended period with teachers. So I get to see teachers again and again, and I can continue to support them. Obviously, doing one-off sessions is fine. People benefit from it. But if we can sustain teacher learning over a period of time and make sure that it's regular, once a month, once a term, once a semester, then it will be more impactful. And again, the research supports this. This is from Cordingley. That's quite long, so I'll just let you read that. So the research supports this idea that we need to have prolonged or extended, sustained teacher learning, because as Cordingley says, we found that it was more effective than shorter ones. I mean, I think it's probably fairly obvious. It's a bit like student learning. If it's extended, then it's more likely to be effective. Okay, so the third thing is the right environment. So what do we mean by the right environment? Well, obviously the right environment, the environment is where it all happens. The school, the college, the university, wherever it might be. So it's very important that we have the right environment. What do we mean by the right environment? Well, obviously we want an environment in which teachers are supported. We want an environment in which there's a positivity around everything that's going on, where the management is keen to support teachers and sees the value in teacher learning, and maybe from time to time gives the teachers time off from teaching to do some teacher learning. Donna in the chat is saying that it's a strong affective domain. Absolutely. And Marwa talks about having a safe environment with optimal circumstances. Absolutely. A positive environment also, I think, is about a degree of order and discipline. It's important that there is a structure within the environment. It's important that there is opportunities for teachers to collaborate with each other, to talk to each other, to share ideas. It's really important that goes on in an education environment. We definitely want our leaders, our managers, our head of years, our administrators, whatever it is that you call them in your context, but we want leadership from these people. And leadership means, not just listening to teachers, but also guiding them and supporting them and mentoring them. And what we should also get from our leaders is, of course, opportunities, professional development opportunities. It's not just about go online and find something, but, the school, the college has invited somebody to come and talk to you based on the feedback that you gave us about your needs as teachers. And of course, it's very important that there is this culture of respect. And as somebody said in the chat box earlier, it needs to be a safe environment for everybody to be working in. So we've talked about there needs to be a joint decision on aims. We've talked about the importance of sustained teacher learning, and we've just been looking at how important it is to have a supportive environment. The fourth element here is that we need to think about the input. What is it that's actually going to be delivered to teachers in terms of the learning? So we need to prepare the input for developing teacher learning. This is something that I've thought a lot about in recent years, and with my colleague Matt, we thought a lot about this when we were writing our book together. And we believe very strongly that in order for teacher training or teacher learning input to be successful, there needs to be three key elements, and we call these the three P's of training: the practical, the personal, and the professional. This has got nothing to do with Jeremy Harmer, present, practice, and produce. It's three completely different P's. But we believe very strongly that these three P's, the practical, the personal, and the professional, need to be in any teacher learning that goes on. So let's have a quick look at what those three things are. I'm very conscious of time. I know we don't have an enormous amount of time, so apologies if I'm rushing a little bit. But the first one is the practical element. So what we're saying is that within a teacher learning event, whether it's an online webinar like we're doing now, whether it's a face-to-face event in a classroom, whether you're doing a CELTA or Cambridge CELTA or Cambridge Delta course, it doesn't matter. But one of the key elements that's needed is a practical element. And I put at the top a classroom and students. It's very important for teachers in a learning situation to have an opportunity to notice teaching. In other words, to see what goes on. And this could be from a demo class, it could be from a colleague's class, or it could be a class on video. And I know quite often when I'm working with teachers, I will show them a recording of somebody else teaching, so that the teachers that I'm working with can notice things that are going on in that particular classroom. Hopefully it's going to be about best practice, but we may also use a short video clip to demonstrate something which we think is not particularly effective. So this is what we mean about the practical element. I'm sure you've all attended workshops where the trainer has said, I want you to try out this activity. So pretend to be students. So this is another way that you can notice elements of teaching on the practical side. Of course, it's not just about noticing teaching. It's really very important, of course, also to practice teaching. So when you get back into the classroom at the implementation stage, there are obviously opportunities to implement what you've seen, but in a training workshop itself, you could do some micro teaching. So in your groups, I want you to micro teach this activity we've just been looking at to the other people in your group. So first of all, you have the opportunity to notice something, and then you have the opportunity to practice something. If you're doing a Cambridge CELTA or Delta or other teaching qualification, obviously you'll have an opportunity for teaching practice. And as I mentioned, you'll also have an opportunity when you go back into your own classroom to actually practice things. Okay, so the first element that we need then is some sort of practical element within a training event. The second one is the personal one. And I think this is particularly important, and it goes back to what I said earlier about changes need to be context sensitive, because not all changes are going to work in all situations. So it's very important that a training workshop is sensitive to the context within which the teachers are working, and also the character and the characteristics of the teachers. It's one of the biggest challenges I think that trainers face, is having a good understanding of a particular context, because trainers will be working in many, many different contexts, and obviously they're all different, and therefore it's really important that we try to get an understanding of where teachers are coming from. So it's important that trainers understand the characteristics and the needs of the teaching context, so that we can use that to inform the training that we're actually doing. It's very important that trainers understand where the teachers are coming from in terms of their opinions and their beliefs. How much knowledge do they have? How much experience do they have? And again, this can be very, very challenging. I mean, for example, today, there's 70 odd people with me, but I don't know very much about you. I mean, I have some idea, but I don't really know very much about you. I don't know how much experience you've got. I don't know what qualifications you've got. So it makes the job of the trainer very difficult. So when we talk about the personal element within training, the point I'm making here, and with my co-author Matt, what we're saying is it's very important to get as good an understanding as possible, and to allow opportunities within the training for teachers to tell us more about their backgrounds and their experience and so on. Because this ultimately helps to bridge the gap between training and the classroom. If I'm not aware of what your classroom context is, then as a trainer, it makes it much, much more challenging to ensure that what I'm talking about will actually be practical in the classroom. It can actually be implemented. And just, to give you an idea of what we mean here, thinking about different contexts, there are obviously differences between these two contexts. On the left, we've got more of a lecture style, and on the right, we've got more of a group style of teaching and learning going on. Now, it's quite possible that when you look at the picture on the left, you think bad cop. When you look at the picture on the right, you think good cop. But what we have to remember is that very often, most of the time, teachers have no control about the context within which they're teaching, and therefore as trainers we need to take that on board and provide solutions and activities which will work in both. It's not the trainer's job to say, oh, you're lucky, your students are working in groups, or you're unlucky because your students are in a lecture theatre. It's not our job to do that. It's a job of a trainer to understand the teacher's context and to provide possible solutions for the challenges that we face. So we've hopefully understood a little bit about the practical side. We've understood a little bit about the personal side, and the next one is the professional side. Sorry, that should say element 3, not element 2, is the professional side. And as a trainer, it's important that trainers introduce things like teaching terminology. It's important that teachers understand what a conditional is. It's important that they understand what receptive skills mean, and so on. It's also important that we introduce to teachers theories, because everything we do on a practical basis is underpinned by theories of learning. It's important also that we provide teachers with methodologies. And I hope you can begin to see now that if we're talking about teaching methodologies, it links back to the practical element where we can actually get teachers involved in a training workshop to think about methodologies and to actually try them out. And the last point here is research insights. And I've already shown you 3 quotes in the last 25 minutes or so to support what it is that I'm talking about. And I think it's really important that trainers build this in, because it gives teachers opportunities it gives them plenty of opportunity, many different benefits of giving teachers access to research. I mean, obviously, it's going to help to get the best results for learners. It means that teachers can go independently and find out about different resources. Obviously, it's important that teachers are learning not just from the trainer and each other, but from other professionals. So you may decide you want to go and read more of Martin Parrott, or you might want to look up Dylan William and find out more about what he's said. And very importantly, of course, I think as teachers, if we have a clearer understanding of theories, it helps us to understand better how we can adapt things in the classroom. There's plenty of opportunities to get free access to research, certainly from Cambridge. The 3 on the right, really lovely stuff that you can get for free. Just, go to those websites. The Teaching Grammar to Adults that you can see is one of many insight papers. These are very user-friendly. Yes, there's theory, but there's also lovely ideas, practical classroom ideas as well. And the ones over on the left, I do apologize for pushing my book again. Those are not free. The books you have to pay for, but the 3 on the right are areas where you can find free access to research. So what we're saying then is that any training event, any teacher learning event needs to have 3 elements to it: the practical element, the personal element, and the professional element. And it doesn't matter in what order they appear. It doesn't matter how much there is of each one. And you could have 2 practical elements, 1 personal and 2 professional. It doesn't matter. But what we're saying is those 3 elements need to be there. Just to give you an example of how this works in practice, this is an example session that a trainer might give on concept checking. And there's just 3 stages in it. The first one is to talk to the teachers about using concept checking questions and why, explain why they're important, and then teachers work alone. So if you think about the first stage, the aim of this would be to find out what the teachers already know. What about the second one? What's the aim of the second one? What are we trying to do in stage 2? Any ideas? What do you think is the aim of stage 2? What are we trying to achieve by explaining the importance of CCQs? Rasha says it's input. Yeah, Ahmed says clarification. I think that's probably a better word. Yeah, okay, good. So what we're trying to do with number 2 is to help teachers to understand the theory. And then the third one, what are we trying to do there? What's the purpose of number 3? Teachers work alone to prepare some CCQs. Let's go to the chat. To get the outcome of the students, put it into practice. Yeah, giving clear. Okay, yeah. Ron talks about knowledge transfer, looking at principles. Okay, excellent, good. Yeah, that was, I think, was for the previous one. The third one is supporting the teachers in applying the theory. So now I'm going to ask you the $66 million question. We've just been talking about the 3 Ps, the practical, the personal, and the professional. Look at those aims on the right of your screen now. Which is the personal, which is the professional, and which is the practical? Any ideas? I'm just looking at the chat box. Okay, I don't see an answer yet. So you'll need to number them so I know which one you're talking about. So stage 1 is what? Is it professional, is it practical, or is it personal? Maria is on the ball. Galimera, Maria. 1 personal, 2 professional, 3 practical. Let's have a look. And other people are following up. Yeah, Shaima, thank you. Yeah. Okay, I think we've got it, of course. Yeah. So this first stage is the personal stage, where we're talking to teachers and finding out what they do already, what they know already, what their experience is already. This is really important because if I find out that there are no issues with concept checking, then it means my teacher learning session takes a sudden dive. But if I've done my research properly, then that shouldn't happen. And then the second one is obviously the professional, because we're talking about why CCCs are so important. We're giving examples, backing it up with research, showing them the theories. And then, of course, we have our practical element where we actually let the teachers try things out. That's a very, simple example of what I mean by the importance of including those 3 elements within our training. So how do we implement it? We've already talked about the input and the implementation and the impact. What we're going to talk about now is a little bit about the input. Here are some examples of how input can actually happen. Oh, there's a picture of me there. This is me doing Train the Trainer course. I think that was in Turkey. Top left, you can see a course working with Saudi gentlemen. In the middle, you can see some input from the teachers themselves. On the right, you can see teachers working with course books. And of course, we've also got the online as well. So input can take place in many different forms, in many different contexts. But we need to consider how and when and where this input is actually going to take place. If we go back to our Ps, well, on the personal side, teachers need to make plans to implement changes in the classroom. So you've attended a teacher learning event or opportunity, a workshop on CCQs. As a teacher, you've got to take it from the input and then go to the next stage, which is the implementation. You can't just implement without thinking about it, without planning. So you need to make plans and you need to be asking yourselves questions. What is actually going to happen? What am I taking from the teacher learning and what will happen in the classroom? When is it going to happen? And what are the problems am I going to face if I try to do this in my classroom? Remember, changes need to be context sensitive. And how am I going to solve them? And as an example, we have a teacher who's decided they're going to write CCQs in their lesson plan. Problems, as you know, we always get unplanned vocabulary that comes up in the classroom. So what do you do about it? Well, this teacher has decided that the CCQs he's going to ask on unplanned vocabulary are going to focus on the grammatical form. Is it a noun? Is it a verb? And so on and so forth. And then CCQs to do with meaning can be done after the lesson has ended. So I've decided that I'm going to do it. I've made my plan. Then I need to do it. So here's the practical side. I need to make the changes to my teaching. And then, of course, I need to reflect. I need to think about this. I need to reflect on what I've done. Because if I just do it once and then make a decision about its impact, that's probably not the right way to go about it. You need to try things out in with different classes. So we need repeated opportunities to see how those changes actually work. Because in some classes it may work, in other classes it may not work. And you need, of course, the fourth step is to be checking for impact, and you need to be using different techniques to check and to evaluate the impact. And of course, as a result of those checks and as a result of your evaluation, then of course you can make any necessary changes, and if necessary, go back to step 3, which was making changes and implementing, making changes and implementing. I think as teachers, we do this anyway. We're constantly changing the things that we do. How can we check for impact? Well, of course, you could get people to observe you, and this is a nice link with the practical side, which I mentioned earlier. So ask your peers to observe your lessons. It doesn't have to be the whole lesson. It could just be a 15-minute slot where you're doing a particular activity that you've decided that you want to try and implement. Why not ask the students? If you're not too frightened, ask the students for their feedback. You could give them a questionnaire. You can give them exit tickets as they walk out of the classroom. There are different ways that you can get feedback. Maybe get samples of student work. That's a very good way, isn't it, to evaluate whether or not what you've done has been successful. And of course, just keeping a journal, keeping a log of what you're doing, maybe putting it into a blog is a very, very, very good way to reflect on what you're doing and to evaluate what you're doing. Okay, so that was a whistle-stop tour of teacher learning. I wish I had more time because I had a lot more to say, but let's just quickly summarize the points that I've made. Let's get you involved again. The goal of what learning is better what learning. Time to use the chat box again, ladies and gents. Marwa says teacher, yeah. And Maria says teacher student. Yeah, let's have a look. So the goal of teacher learning is better student learning. Exactly. Because if the goal of teacher learning is not better student learning, then something's gone wrong with the teacher learning. Something's gone wrong with that input stage and the implementation stage. If teachers are not taking what they've learned in input into classrooms, then you do have to question why they're actually doing the teacher learning in the first place. What about the next one? For best what? Prepare the ground. For best what? Fiona says best input. I'll give you half a mark. Best result? Impact? Yeah, good. For best results, prepare the ground. For best outcomes, prepare the ground. In other words, it's really important that we plan what it is that we're doing. The next one, check for what as you what. Check for what as you what. Mr. Ahmed says result, and then he changed it to impact. Yeah, most people are going for impact. Yeah, check for impact as you what? Yeah, understanding. Yeah, that would also work, Mariam. Yeah, Marwa, as you said, I'll give you half a mark, Marwa. Not the word I'm looking for. As you progress, says Mr. Ahmed. Yes. Check for impact as you progress. It's important as teachers that we're constantly checking. Has it worked? Has it worked? Has it worked? And the last one is just one word with 2 bits missing. Allow time for what? To consolidate. It's long, one word. 3 syllables. Ends with S. Begins with I. Not quite, Marwa. Nearly. Oh, nice word. But it's got EM in the middle. Yes, Ahmed, it's plural. So allow time for improvements to consolidate. So don't expect change. Don't expect impact to happen immediately. Sometimes with things that you're trying out in the classroom, you need to give them a little bit of time in order to consolidate. Okay, just to show that I'm not talking rubbish, everything I've been talking about today is based on research. It's all based on theory, and I think there's hopefully you can see this link between the theory and the practice.